Welcome to The Unconventional Path, Entrepreneurship and Innovation Stories and Ideas. Hello, I'm Bela and Mike.
And I'm Mike Wasserman.
Today, we're excited to be joined by Trevor Crotts. Trevor is founder and president of BuddyBrands. It started as a high-end pet mattress company and has expanded to include several other pet-related brands. We discussed the challenges of entering a crowded market with a premium brand, the importance of brands, and how having multiple related brands is really critical to your business.
Sounds interesting, Bela. I mean, you know I'm not a pet guy or a kid guy, but this piques my interest. It's a cool little niche market, and I could see how it might be a really good business. So let's jump right into the interview.
Hello, listeners. Today's guest is Trevor Crotts. He owns multiple businesses and is a very successful entrepreneur and has some great sort of knowledge and information to share with us. Welcome to the show, Trevor.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Sure. So let me ask you a question. If you're at a social event and you get introduced to somebody, and after that introduction, they ask you, Trevor, what do you do? How do you answer that question?
You know, I usually try to keep it. It depends, I guess, whether I want to go down that rabbit hole with them or not. But I usually answer it, I'm an entrepreneur. And that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. Oftentimes when people hear entrepreneur, they think, oh, so you're unemployed and you live in your mom's basement. So it just kind of depends, I guess, who I'm talking to. Oftentimes I'll just say I own a pet products manufacturing company, which is a bit understated, but I think does the trick.
Okay. So that's great. So let's peel that back a little bit. So let's talk about this pet business that you own.
Yeah, sure. So about 10 years ago, I was working in the mattress industry. And I saw that there was nothing out there that was as supportive as we had for human beings out there for dogs. So essentially, you know, at the time being a big dog person, my dog Buddy, you know, I realized when I took him to the vet one day that you know, big dogs don't live very long. And I was kind of surprised to find this out because my dog, when I was growing up, I had a smaller poodle and she lived to be about 15. And so when the vet told me that he was expected to live 9 or 10 years, I was really kind of shocked. And so upon peeling back those layers a little bit further and doing a little bit of research, you know, I discovered that the number one reason why big dogs don't live as long as their smaller counterparts are usually due to quality of life issues associated with painful joint problems. And then upon more research, 9 out of 10 dogs over the age of 10 actually have arthritis, hip dysplasia, and painful joint problems. So it's a really, really common issue. And, you know, knowing what I knew about support systems for humans, and I'd seen firsthand how they'd made a difference in the lives of people, I sought out something that was going to do the same thing for my dog. And that's really it in a nutshell. There was really nothing out there. And everything out there that was claiming to be supportive was really just egg crate foam, which I knew was good for shipping items around the country, but not good for laying on. So, you know, out of necessity, we decided to do something not only for Buddy, but for the millions of dogs out there that are afflicted with these painful joint problems and are destined to live a short life. And so we created our company called BuddyRest. And BuddyRest is all about it's an orthopedic bed company that was game changing at the time 10 years ago when we introduced the first science-based health approach to dog bedding. And so our beds, you know, redistribute weight equally across the surface. They take away painful joint problems, and they promote better joint health as dogs get older.
Wow.
And that's where I got it started.
Cool. So what were you doing before you started BuddyRest?
So I've been working in the mattress industry before that, and I bounced around a little bit as a corporate trainer. And I've been a sales guy in my heart and a marketing guy probably my whole life. But, you know, really what I found was it really filled my cup not only to sell products, but also to teach other people how to sell. And so I thought my calling was as a trainer, and you know, to this day, I still do some consulting and some training on the side. But that really gave me a good base and got me prepared for the next adventure in life, which was entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So it sounds like you know, it's a relatively new category, or it's certainly a higher end category than what typically people might find for dog beds. And
Sure.
So how did you overcome those challenges? What were the things that you did to sort of, you know, educate folks about the importance of this?
Sure. I love the question because it is a massive challenge, especially when you're entering a new innovation into a product category, or innovating a new product category altogether. It's difficult. And it takes a lot of education, not only just for a one-on-one piece for the customer, but to educate the market. And I'll tell you that it all really started with a little bit of self-belief and confidence that you have something, right? Because if I listened to everybody that told me that no one's going to spend over $100 on a dog bed, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. And I heard that a lot. And I said, yeah, no, I understand that. But I also see people spend thousands of dollars on mattresses. And I understand the reason why is because of their health, and they want a better night's sleep, and they want to feel great. And I didn't see why that wouldn't cross over and apply to pets in the same way, especially now that things have changed in the last 30, 40, 50 years where pets are more considered to be part of the family, and we're no longer dog owners, we're pet parents. And so for me, I saw that there was an opportunity, and I kind of ignored some of the feedback I got, and I decided to go ahead and create a product. And so we created a product. It was a prototype, and we took it to market. We had a little dog show that was in town, and it was outside, and we hurriedly built a website that didn't work, and our banner had a misspelling on it, and it was just kind of a nightmare from a show standpoint. But what we did get at the show was we got a lot of interest from customers. People wanted to know more, and they were asking buying questions like, how much does this cost, and what colors does it come in? And it was really validating for us, and it gave us enough confidence to move forward, get the website fixed, get the spelling right on our banner, and keep at it. And so that's what we did. We launched our website, and a couple of weeks later, we made our first sale, and then we had a second sale and a third sale, and it kind of just organically grew from that.
Yeah. So did you do everything online pretty much?
So in the very beginning, we had a lot of ambitions. So in the first couple of weeks, obviously, there wasn't a whole lot for us to do besides some shows and online. But yeah, in the first couple of years, 2 or 3 years, as we started to get some traction, we really put some focus in going into brick and mortar retail stores. We knew that our products were more expensive than what was on the shelf. But we also knew that 10 years earlier, dog food had changed the whole market. Dog food used to just be something you pick up at Walmart, and it's just a commodity. And we'd seen how people would invest in the health of their animal when it came to dog food. And people were spending $40, $50, $60, $100 on dog food. People were cooking food for their dogs at dinner time. People were giving them raw diets. And so we really thought that, hey, we're just the tip of the spear. If someone's willing to spend $100 on a bag of dog food one time, 1 month, why wouldn't they spend over $100 or $150 on a dog bed that's guaranteed to last the lifetime of their animal? And so that was where we really pushed hard, and we did get some traction. We got into about 600 pet stores, independent stores, and what we quickly found out was, and I like the question you asked previously because it ties in here with the education piece. We found out that we were able to educate the store owner, but they were not able to pass along the passion and the education for the product to their part-time, summer employee. And ultimately that summer employee wasn't able to articulate the value of our product to the end consumer. And so essentially we had a bunch of expensive beds on shelf. So we would sell a lot of our product, but the resale and it was not there. And so we would push product into stores. We wouldn't pull it through stores. And so we tried a lot of different things. We created a lot of training materials. I invested a lot of my time, being that was my background. I thought we could educate our way out of this problem. And this is just what happens being tip of the spear. But after a couple of years of just slow and steady growth and a lot of work, we decided, let's go ahead and focus on e-com. And I can tell you, flash forward to 2020 and 2021 now, I sure am glad we did.
Yeah. Yeah. That reminds me of an experience I had. For a period of time, I ran a very high-end bicycle manufacturing business. And we went through retail stores, bike shops, in essence. And it was that salesman who was making, $10 an hour, $12 an hour, because a person would walk into the store and that person was going to leave that store with a very expensive bicycle. And it was that salesperson that was fundamentally going to decide for that person which brand of high-end bicycle they were going to leave with, right? Sure. Unless they already came in knowing that exactly what they wanted, right? So if they were pre-educated and they knew the product, they just came in and basically the salesperson took an order. But right. Most of the customers knew they wanted a really good bike, but that's all they knew. And it was that salesperson. And so trying to figure out how to motivate, right? How do you inspire that salesperson to steer that person to your product is a challenge. So I really sort of understand what you're saying here.
Absolutely. And I love that story, and to, I guess, to make apples and apples, if you could imagine that there was only one expensive bike in that store, and everybody in the world is used to buying cheap bikes and throwing them away every couple of months and buying another cheap bike.
Right.
It makes it a real big challenge when you're just on the shelf next to another product. And we think that even though we don't win on price, we win on quality and we win on value every day of the week. But ultimately, I think the lesson that both of our stories share is that educating the consumer into the right product is absolutely pivotal. And no matter how great your product is, if you're not able to articulate that in a way that people understand, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you end up migrating pretty much back to e-commerce and selling online?
Yeah, so we moved to a mostly e-commerce model. We do still sell some of our products in stores, but the dog bed piece, is primarily online through our own websites and through some of our partner websites. So you can buy our products on Chewy and Target and Bass Pro Shops and that kind of thing. And that's where the dog bed business ended up. And so, going back to that, we were in only the dog bed business for the first couple of years. And we saw how we had a really nice business, but it was still a niche, right? And although there's riches and niches, we wanted more market share, and we wanted to grow the business into something big and spectacular. And so we were looking for opportunities, and we made an acquisition for a local company that was selling safety products for dogs, and that was kind of our first acquisition. And then we made an acquisition a couple of years later into supplements and treats and CBD. And then we also have built a couple brands along the way, like our Tough Pup brand. So nowadays, we're no longer BuddyRest, we're BuddyBrands. And we're a collection of pet product brands, including BuddyRest, Natural Doggy, Pet Envy, Pup IQ, and Tough Pup. And, the reason for the multiple brand approach is really simple. And I always like to tell people this because sometimes people don't quite understand what our strategy is. But, the thing to understand is, although we might be selling pet products, not all dog people are the same. And in this day and age with digital marketing, it's incredibly important that you are speaking to your target customer in an authentic way that they resonate with. And unfortunately, that's just not possible when you're attacking all different ends of a marketplace. Oftentimes, you need to pivot the brand or pivot the product to make sure it's fitting that particular customer base. And so that's what we've done. I think the big thing to understand about our strategy, though, is that at the core, all of our products are still they're geared around one thing, and that's solving problems for pet people. And that's what we do. And I mean, when I say solving problems, I like to say solving real problems for real pet people, because we're not the ones that make cool dog hoodies, although I think those are super cool and cute and all that. That's just not what we do. We focus on solving health issues. We focus on solving anxiety and mobility, pain, allergies, itching, things that are really affecting dogs and making them miserable and affecting their quality of life. And all of our products are solution-based and geared towards helping dogs and improving the quality of life of animals across the world.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. So I have a question for you. I want to go back to those acquisitions. I mean, you're an entrepreneur. You started the business. What made you decide to buy another business as opposed to saying, you know what, we're going to start our own version of that and we're going to do it better?
Sure. So we've done both. We have a build and buy strategy going on here. And I think that what we look at is, opportunity knocks, right? And you answer it and you explore it and you see if it's a fit. And we never did anything that wasn't highly strategic, right? So it had to fit into what we were doing, had to make sense. There's different reasons you do different things. One of them is that we wanted a trademark that they had, because we thought that there was a potential possibility to expand into that product line and really build something behind that. Another one was we wanted their website, because their website was extremely old and had a really high domain authority, and we wanted to leverage that and push our own content management strategy out there and do our content marketing through that, so we could amplify our voice on the internet. So, I mean, I think that there's not there has to be a rhyme and a reason, but there's no kind of clear-cut answer on which is the right thing to do. And other brands, for example, like Tough Pup, we built it from the ground up. And you can do either or. And luckily, as we've grown a bit, it's kind of opened up the options we have and the opportunities we have as we're able to make these types of acquisitions. But we're not making acquisitions just to make acquisitions. They have to be a strategic fit for our overall plan. It has to make sense for the roadmap.
Yeah, yeah. So what I heard you say was not only were they strategic fit, but they had a key asset that you wanted to get, right?
Exactly.
That maybe you couldn't get any other way.
That you couldn't build on your own. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Excellent. Excellent. So having built several of these businesses, they're e-commerce based, sort of what have been some of the lessons you have learned in sort of this e-commerce space?
Oh, man. Learned a lot of lessons. I promise you that. And, we like to talk about how glamorous life is in entrepreneurship, especially when you're looking at, Facebook and Instagram, social media. But, it's not for everybody. And I always like to pitch starting entrepreneurship with a bit of measured caution, right? First off, you have to be an optimist, right? And anybody who's going to start a pet product company or start a business in general has to be an optimist, because I don't think it's going to work. It's just like there's a famous astronaut that said, you have to be an optimist to be an astronaut. Otherwise, why would you strap yourself to 10,000 pounds of liquid nitrogen on top of a rocket, right? You have to think that things are going to go well, and you have to have a positive attitude about it. And I think that that's critically important in entrepreneurship. Is optimism is kind of ante into the game. But the thing is oftentimes, even though we encourage entrepreneurship, and I think it's important, not everybody is built for this, because, the first 5-6 years that we started the company, even though I tell you the good stories that we have and some of the fond milestones that we've made, it was incredibly tough. Took an incredible amount of sacrifice. You're making less money than you've ever made, trying to sell things so you can pay your people. You're selling things on Friday and hoping you have good sales on Saturday and Sunday, or you're not going to be able to pay your people on Monday. And we went through several years of that sell to survive. And then eventually, with enough tenacity and resilience, and we started to make some forward progress and started to grow and thrive. Back to your question, though, I mean, I could give 1,000 tips on starting off in e-commerce or in our brand. You got to be really careful with who you hire. I think that's a super important thing, not just internally, but externally. Oftentimes we look to hire firms or hire people that we think have skills. And I think that's necessary, because I'm a big believer in 80-20 and doing what you're great at and finding somebody else to do the rest. But in the beginning, you kind of have to be a student of the game, and you kind of have to learn a lot of different strategies in order to be successful. And I think as you grow, the knowledge that you gain early on serves you well. It allows you to be a wise purveyor of, like, digital marketing services, for example. If you don't know anything about digital marketing and you go and hire a digital marketing firm, it's not going to be a very successful relationship, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. You need to know at least enough to be dangerous. And so I think, just to kind of summarize that, be careful with who you hire. You have to be an optimist. And I think that ultimately that love for learning and that quest for more knowledge, and whether it be Kaizen principles or continuous improvement, you have to be able to learn new skills and be hungry to learn new skills. Otherwise, I don't think there's any way you can make it without that.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. So as people start out, or as you were starting out, how did you sort of balance the notion of building your own website, selling things to your website, versus trying to sell stuff on Amazon or Walmart or some other commerce platform?
I really like that question. It's tough, right? In the beginning, like I said, we were selling in retail stores, right? And I remember we had a retail store in Kansas City. We're in Wichita, Kansas. It's about a 2.5 hour drive. And I remember we sold some beds to them, and we were all excited about it. But guess what? We got to pay the bills, and that you got to find more sales. You got to find a way to survive and succeed. So we started running a sale on our website, and didn't think too much about it. We were just trying to keep things afloat. But we got a knock on our door, and we open it, and we're in some small little office park, and there is a truck with a trailer full of dog beds from Kansas City that the pet store owner was so pissed at us that we ran a sale. that they had drove all the way down there and demanded a return. And we gave it to them. And I understood it at the time. I think it was a little bit of maybe it could have been handled better, I think, on both sides. But ultimately, it's a balancing act. You have to understand where your partners are and what value do they bring. Are they just wanting to list your product on their website, or are they willing to invest in the partnership? Are they willing to bring more traffic and more awareness? Are they willing to double expose your products into multiple categories? What are they really bringing from a partner standpoint? I think that's incredibly important, and you need to know how to balance that for everybody. Because if it's not working for the partnership, it's not going to last very long, right? And so I guess ultimately, selling products online and if you sell it through your own site, you own the relationship. If you sell it through Amazon, they own the relationship. Amazon's never been a fantastic play, for example, on our dog beds, just because, going back to that analogy, the bike shop or the dog bed business, Amazon, our beds are on a large shelf full of thousands and thousands of other competing dog beds. A lot of Chinese dog beds that are an exact ripoff, and I mean, an emulation is kind of a nice way to say it, of our product exactly. And so, even though we have a superior product, it's handmade, and we have extra strong thread that's 5 times the strength and premium materials, and it's handcrafted in our facility here in Kansas, it doesn't matter, because unless you're able to get into consideration, you're not able to articulate the value. And so I think that being able to have your own website, being able to own the relationship with the customer is incredibly important. And just to take it one step further, I think that is transactionally, that is what's going to make the difference versus being transactional going forward. Because if you think that you're going to build a company online in 2021 and you're going to have better pricing than Amazon, better logistics than Amazon, or better brand awareness and trust than Amazon, you're probably setting yourself up to fail. You need to find how can we build relationships with our customers? How can we encourage customers to buy from us, not because it's the cheapest or the fastest shipping, but because they truly resonate with who you are as a brand and you speak to them. And ultimately, what I would want to share with people is how can you help your customer tell their story through your brand and your products? And that would be a point of emphasis I would tell people to focus on.
Yeah. One of the ways that I think about that is you got to decide which metrics you want to compete on. Do you want to compete on shipping? Do you want to compete on price? Or do you want to compete on connecting with a customer or quality or, some other attribute, right? And you, as a business person, you have to select which one of those you want to compete on, because you can't compete on all of them.
Absolutely. You can't be a cost leader and a highly differentiated person in the market at the same time. Right. You have to understand who you are, what you are, and where your role plays. And for most people listening to your podcast, it's probably not cost leadership, right? They're probably not going to be the cheapest. You can't get the same economy of scale as some of the larger competitors in the space. So you really need to ask yourself, really, where do we compete? And don't tell me service, okay? Because I hear a lot of people say, well, the difference between our company is we offer fantastic service. You know what? That can be a differentiator compared to Amazon or someone else that maybe doesn't have a live person on the phone you can reach out. But that's just ante into the game. You have to provide a high level of service if you're going to be successful, period. And it's not a differentiator. It's just what's expected these days. So
that's right.
Think of something better than just service. Service is just another thing that you need to be good at. You really need to figure out how can you either control your supply chain and the products, and make sure that you understand how to control the pricing integrity as well, because MAP pricing is super important. And something I don't think people understand oftentimes is that Amazon actually, and by the way, I'm not anti-Amazon. I just realized this is coming out of my mouth. It's sounding very anti-Amazon. But at the end of the day, Amazon does encourage people to destroy the pricing integrity of their products. If I'm selling my dog beds and you are another retailer selling my dog beds, it's going to prompt you and say, hey, you are not the most affordable one on Amazon. Click this one button and we'll drop you your price down below the competition. And then you'll do that. And guess what? You'll win the buy box and you'll get some more sales because you'll be the number one listing. But at the same note, as soon as you do that, it's going to send me a note that says, hey, you are no longer the cheapest one on Amazon. Click this button and we'll lower your price. And so it's the literal race to the bottom. And so oftentimes people bring their products on Amazon, and if they don't control the supply chain and they're not curating who they allow to sell their product, it just absolutely decimates the pricing integrity that you built in the product, because they encourage a race to the bottom.
Right. Well, they compete on price, so they're motivated to to do it that way.
Absolutely. Hey, you know what? There's something I like to share with people that I heard that they say, hey, Google knows what you're looking for, Facebook knows what you like, but Amazon knows what you want to buy. And Amazon's not focused on serving the most relevant result to your query like Google might be. They're interested in serving what they think you're going to maybe purchase, right?
That's right.
And that's something to keep in mind.
That's right. So I want to talk a little bit about something you mentioned there, which is supply chain. So you sell products that are tangible, things that get put into a box that the UPS guy comes and delivers, right? So
Yep.
How do you think about supply chain? How did you set that up? And what were some of the challenges in that?
So supply chain has probably been our biggest challenge as a company over the years, and especially when it comes to scaling, right? Because it takes money to scale. It takes money to bring in inventory. So, for years we operated with a JIT system, a just-in-time system that was, it was a variation of what Toyota invented with their production system. And the whole principle between JIT is you have just enough material to make just enough products to ship just in time for the customer. And it's a way of running lean. And so we did that for years. The problem is our products for the first 6 years were used a specialized fabric that had only one single source supplier. So when being married to a single source supplier is a very bad thing, because although it can differentiate your product, at the end of the day, if they're out of material, you're out of material. If they're late on their orders, you're late on your orders. And so BuddyRest in particular had a lot of challenges revolving around how do we bring in inventory but not spend a ton of money doing it. So it's a pretty tricky thing. Only until we got away from the single source supply issue did things start to open up. And not only that, only then did we actually start to make a lot of investments. And you can also, once you have enough volume, you can start to leverage your inventory for inventory-based financing. And then, so that's really what we use to grow our inventory. And now, so today we are fully stocked on everything. We've got massive amounts of material, and we're always creating as many products as we can. And our goal is to ship as fast as possible. And that's super important because no one wants to wait 14 days. And keep in mind, I don't want to use Amazon as the word of the day, but at the end of the day, they're looking to deliver the same day, and they can do that in a lot of markets right now in 2021. Somebody orders something, it shows up at their doorstep that same day. So if you're thinking about, supply chains and made to order, that can work as long as you're making something bespoke or something that's custom made or has some sort of personalization.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you've got to get with the times, and it has to be fast shipping. And the only way to really accomplish that is to carry inventory and have stuff ready to go.
Yeah. Excellent. So do you guys manufacture, you have your own manufacturing facilities, or do you use contract manufacturers?
In the beginning, so the short answer is yes, we make it all ourselves. The longer answer is we started off thinking, we just need to hire an upholstery company. So we hired an upholstery company that made our dog beds. And that didn't work out after a while. So we found another upholstery company. And ultimately, we decided, you know what, there's not much to this manufacturing stuff. We just need to cut it out, and someone needs to sew it. And then we package it up and ship it out. And it's super simple. And then so we decided to take it all on in-house, and we hired some machine operators and all that. And what we quickly realized is that there is a lot more to manufacturing than we thought. And we made probably every mistake possible, from having inventory shortages, quality issues, to having all sorts of waste of movement and lots of waste of materials. And so I got to tell you that we do manufacture all of our products in-house, and we're damn good at it. But it took us a long time to get there. And nowadays, all of our products are made right here in the U.S., which is a fantastic place to be, especially when you're dealing with COVID supply chain issues, as well as overseas trade wars. Being a domestic manufacturer is definitely glad that that's what we do here.
Yeah, great. So before we start recording this, you were telling me about a new project you've started and a new business. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So our new project is our new company is a technology company called ScanShop. And you can learn more if you want to go to scanshop.io. What we do is we actually take products and we digitize them into 3D assets. So What does that mean? We create 3D models out of your products. And why would somebody want a 3D model of their product? Well, by showing the product in 3D on your website, and even using View in My Space augmented reality, which is available today on a lot of different platforms, you can increase your conversion rates by an average of 30 to 50% on page. And the reason why is really simple, is because by using a 3D model versus just a flat 2D still photography, you can give the customer unprecedented access to the product. They can spin the product on all axis. They can even look inside the product at some points. They can read the tag on the backside, and it really gives them more increased confidence about the product itself, because it sets a really good, realistic impression of what the product's going to look like, especially if you have a product that lends itself to View in My Space, for example, dog beds. So if you go to BuddyRest.com and you look at any of our products, you can actually open up the product page and you can actually go and put the product in augmented reality and see what the dog bed would look like in your living room. Now, why that's important more now than ever is because it bridges the gap between shopping in a store and shopping online at home. Because now you can actually see what the product's going to look like in your house, whether it be a piece of, a canvas art print on your wall or a piece of furniture. The augmented reality piece really bridges that gap, and it really does a great job. Now, current ways of digitizing products are really almost all done by hand by human 3D modelers. So you send them some pictures of your product, or you send them your product, and they will create their interpretation of it. And it can, a lot of the times it can look really authentic and beautiful, but a lot of the times it's inauthentic and doesn't really do your product justice. And the reason is because it's someone's impression or rendering of the product. What we're doing is we're actually using proprietary scan technology that is super cutting edge, market world leader stuff that really takes the human component out of it and creates a digital replica. And so it's really game changing, and and it's very accessible too. So if you want to increase your conversion rates online and you want to sell more product, you should definitely be looking into 3D asset creation. And if you're not already, and if you want 3D asset creation in the easiest, most scalable, most affordable way, you can go to scanshop.io and learn more.
Wow, that sounds great. It sounds like an exciting new business endeavor for you. Kind of a little bit different than dog beds and things for pets.
It is definitely a little bit different. I think what led me down this path is that, even though we are a pet products manufacturing company, we are very deep into e-commerce technology, digital marketing, because it doesn't matter how great your product is, like I said, if you're not able to articulate the value to the audiences, right? So this is just another way, another tool of being able to articulate and educate that customer, just like we were talking about earlier, increase their confidence in the product, set realistic expectations, and they know that what they saw on your website is what's going to show up at the door. It's also going to reduce your returns, and it's going to create the most amazing user experience on your website you could possibly provide. And oftentimes people think that's really cool. I'd like to have that in the future, but you can use this right now on any Shopify website. You don't need to download an app for augmented reality. It's native. And so the time is absolutely now to get this done.
Wow. That sounds really exciting. So Trevor, is there anything that I should have asked you that I haven't?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I think that she did such a great job. I mean, we could talk for hours about all sorts of different things, but the value that I hope to provide, your listeners is not advice. Because I'm not here to share advice with anybody. I'm not in a position to give people advice, and I just generally don't like the pretentiousness of people telling everybody what to do. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm only here to share my experience. And if you guys found it valuable and helpful, I hope you did. If not, maybe listen again. And if you still didn't, then I'm sorry. But if you want to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. If you have a Clubhouse account, you can find me at Trevor J. And then definitely check out BuddyRest.com, NaturalDoggy.com, and ScanShop.io. We would love to help you and help you increase your success online with ScanShop, and we'd love to help make sure that your animals are happy and healthy at home with the rest of our pet products companies.
Well, that's great, Trevor. You've been a wonderful guest. I will make sure all of that information is in the show notes. And thank you very much for taking the time to be on the show.
Super appreciate you having me, and thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bela, interesting interview. I really like how Trevor saw an opportunity, built a startup, and then quickly evolved into e-commerce. It was very clear that he learned quickly the challenges of taking a consumer, educating them to look at something differently than they had in the past, and then trying to do that when you're competing with lots of other brands in a retail store. It's really, really challenging. And it's one thing that I've seen throughout my entrepreneurial career, when you're really trying to connect with a customer and kind of change how they view a product or a service. It's a huge challenge. What struck you about Trevor's approach to building a company and delivering value to customers? Especially, he was very specific in terms of he used some e-commerce channels and not others, like specifically Amazon. What were your thoughts on that, Bela?
Yeah, so I think this is a challenge for a lot of companies. And there's several important things I want to try to address here. One is this notion of educating the consumer. And when you're in a brick and mortar store, and a customer walks in, you have two types of customers. You have one type of customer that has already decided what they're going to buy. They've done their research. They've watched the advertising on TV or the radio or whatever, and they know the brand and the product they're going to buy. And then you have another type of customer that walks in, which knows generically that they want to buy a dog bed, for an example, but they don't have an idea of which model or brand they're going to buy. And oftentimes it's the sales associate, the person working in the store, that's going to guide that person to which one that they purchase. So the way I think about this is, do you want to push the products? In other words, if it's the sales associate, it's the sales associate that's doing the education of your potential customer. It's the whole reason why drug companies do advertising for prescription-only drugs on TV, so that those ads are not aimed at doctors. They're aimed at you, the consumer. So you go into the doctor's office saying, hey, I want this. I saw this drug on TV, and I think it solves my symptoms. So that's sort of pull, right? You're pulling that from the doctor. Whereas if the advertising is only given to the doctor, he's the one that's going to convince you, here's the right medicine for you. Now, I'm not making a statement here that one way is better than the other, particularly when it comes to medications. But I think on these consumer products, as a business, you need to think about how you're going to do this. Who's going to do your educating? Because it's going to take a lot of resources either way. So you either need to social media, advertising, whatever, to educate your potential customers, or is it going to be the store and the retail channel? Both of those take a lot of time and energy. So you got to, number one, figure out what you're going to do there. So I think that's one key point. Another point I wanted to make is this notion about high end in a crowded market. So you have to decide what you want to compete on. Do you want to compete on price, or do you want to compete on some other attribute of your product? And Trevor said they wanted to, make the best dog bed there is out there. And he didn't think for a certain segment of the market, price would be an issue. And so they're going after that end of the market. And so you want to be clear when you enter a market that's crowded, what's your niche? And price is a difficult niche to compete on. Very challenging. So, I always tend to look at what other metric do you want to compete on, and be clear about it. Be clear about it to yourself. Be clear about it to your distribution channel. Be clear about it in your advertising and your promotional materials. So I think, those are two things that I took away from my conversation with Trevor. How about you, Mike?
Agreed, Bela. I was really struck by how he took this single product and then moved to a family of brands. And I like how he did this through a combination of acquisitions and then organic growth, kind of doing it, on his own. What was your take on Trevor's growth strategy and his kind of multiple brand approach?
Yeah, so this comes down to, I think having multiple brands is good, because if you have a single brand and your company is identified with one brand, sometimes through no fault of your own, bad things can happen to your brand, right? You can have a supply chain problem. You can have a bad batch that goes out unbeknownst to you for whatever reason, and you develop a bad reputation in the marketplace. You can have distribution challenges on a particular brand. So there's lots of things that can happen if you're a single brand company or a single product company, is maybe a more accurate way of saying that. So having multiple products is, I think, a key important element of any solid business. And I go back to one of our previous episodes, Carl Allen, episode 113, who talked about acquiring versus building your own. Remember, he was the guy that we talked about from an entrepreneurial perspective. You know, the percentage of startups that fail is much higher than the percentage of companies that people acquire that fail. So this notion of acquiring something as opposed to starting your own, and the advantages to acquiring a business as opposed to starting your own. And I think Trevor did a nice job at that by acquiring brands and products that he could build into his company and strengthen his footprint out in the consumer space.
Yeah, it's almost like he took us, kind of looked at the landscape and said, here I can grow by buying better. And then here there's nothing out there that fits my needs, so I'm going to grow this brand. And I really thought that was a really cool way to approach this. So I thought that was great too. I also liked his guidance on not relying solely on, say, digital marketing agencies for his digital marketing work. And that his kind of mantra that any entrepreneur needs to know enough about the business, in this case, digital marketing, to make that relationship work. If you walk in, you don't know anything, you're going to be in big trouble. Okay. And you know, he had this passion for continuous learning, whether it was learning how to make the beds, right, when they brought the manufacturing in-house, or how to market effectively digitally. But now, you know, Bela, we've talked to many different people over the last couple of years, and, you know, you get sometimes people say, hey, focus on what you're really good at and outsource everything else, right? This core competency approach that we teach, right? Versus what Trevor was saying, which is, hey, you better make sure that you know enough to be dangerous, like he said, of all the different aspects of your business. Kind of putting on your VC hat, what do you want to see, especially new entrepreneurs? Which approach do you want them to take?
So I like to flavor it slightly different than do what you're good at. I like to flavor it as make sure you know how to do what's important to your business. So there's certain aspects of every business that are critical. It may be how your product is manufactured. It may be how your product is distributed. It may be your supply chain is the most important. It may be your intellectual property. But pick the 2 or 3 or 4 things that are absolutely critical to the success of your business. And I like to think about keeping those inside. You control those. And take the things that are less important and let vendors and suppliers do those things. However, I do agree with Trevor that every entrepreneur, every business owner has to have a minimum level of competence in all disciplines, right? You may farm out your accounting, but you certainly still have to understand sort of the rudimentary things about accounting. You have to have an idea of, you know, a balance sheet and a P&L statement and cash flow. You may not have to understand whether this particular item gets categorized as an expense or a capital item, or if it goes into this category or that category, but you certainly have to sort of have some fundamental knowledge. And I think that's true, whether it be accounting or marketing or finance or social media, all of these things that are all elements of your business, you have to have some rudimentary understanding of them. And then I feel the ones that are absolutely critical to your business, the ones that without your business is not successful, then those I think you want to control yourself. Not yourself as an individual, but you want to keep them inside the 4 walls of your business.
Depth in what's important, but breadth in kind of all these secondary areas that you need to know something about, law or accounting or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. And then I really liked his approach to always keep learning, that was just an important part because your market's always changing and your competition's always changing. So that's something I think that both of us have really emphasized with our students is entrepreneurs need to have this continuous learning to be successful.
That's a great point, Mike. One other thing I want to talk about is this notion of distribution and channel conflict. So it's okay to have brick and mortar distribution. direct. You sell it direct on your website, your product, and you go through each e-commerce channels like Amazon or Etsy or whatever. The challenge that you have to be careful about, in addition to the time and energy it takes to manage all those channels and to educate them and to keep them happy, but the other thing is what I call channel conflict. Is I've seen companies oftentimes will do a 20% sale on their website, but they don't offer that same incentive to their brick and mortar distribution side. And that just pisses off the brick and mortar folks because customers are walking in and saying, hey, wait a minute, I can buy this same product for 20% less directly from the company. So you have to be careful if you have multiple distribution channels that you manage them carefully and you don't give one an advantage on price or delivery or something that you don't give the other, because it will piss that channel off. And remember, Trevor even talked about that where he got the big shipment of dog beds back from one of the retailers. He said, here they are. And he just sent them back to them. And they're not going to pay the bill. So you have no choice, right? So if you give them terms, which you got to give terms to all these folks, and you ship them a bunch of product, and then for some reason they get pissed off at you, they'll ship it back to you and not pay the bill. And you're screwed. So managing various different channels is important, and making sure that you don't pit one against the other is really, really important as well. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Great point, Bela. And this is one, if you're an entrepreneur, big companies screw this up all the time too. We see this time and time again. It's something I teach both in entrepreneurship and also in strategic management, because it seems simple and it seems obvious, but a lot of people screw this up multiple times. So, going back to I think what Trevor said is, being a one trial learner, right? Try not to make that mistake at all, but you don't want to piss off the people you rely on that are your direct connection with the customer. It never works. So yeah, all great points and a great interview, Bela. Thanks. What do you think? Should we wrap it up?
Sounds good to me, Mike.
All right, listeners, thanks for joining us, and we hope you found this episode interesting and thought-provoking. If you have questions about what we've discussed, we always are happy to hear from you. Our email is bela.and.mike@gmail.com.
Yeah, and please do subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. So until next time, signing off from upstate New York. See you soon, Mike.
Great, Bela. Thanks again. Really appreciate it. From over here in Münster, Germany, we'll see you soon.